This is Karen Jarrett, and you're listening to another wrestling podcast.
It's time for another wrestling podcast.
The measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at
the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be.
They think they got the answers. I change the question.
The cream of the crop. Nobody does it better.
These are the best in the world, brother. These are the best at what they do.
When we talk about the legends of the sport, there's only two in my book.
Another wrestling podcast.
Another wrestling podcast. Now can you dig that, sucker?
All right, everybody, welcome to another wrestling podcast. This is episode 89. I'm Jonathan Benjamin.
And I'm Steve Credo.
Well, we have another amazing show for you today, and I'm calling this the Road to GFW. We are spending a lot of time talking with GFW performers as well as some PWS performers, because on January 22nd and 23rd, Global Force Wrestling makes its Northeast debut at the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in our backyard, Poughkeepsie, New York.
Yes, Jonathan, man, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Wrestling is happening in our backyard, man. It's the new year. It's the first month, and we're going to go see a wrestling show. Another wrestling show, Jonathan. It's going to be great, man. I can't wait. Jonathan, the one biggest thing people got to take out of this is that we're going to be a part of this show in the VIP experience. So if you're listening right now and you didn't get your ticket yet, get your tickets. And on top of those tickets, pay the $25 for the VIP experience. Guys, I don't know any other show that does this, because with only $25, you get into the show early. You get free autographs from every superstar there. And you get to hear a special question and answer little segment hosted by yours truly, Steve and Jonathan. Us, we're going to be talking to the wrestlers. We're going to be asking them questions that you guys are going to, send in or ask us live there. So that's one big thing, Jonathan. If you're listening and you're going to this show in Poughkeepsie, please, tweet us, Facebook us. We'll, email us. Any question you want to any of the superstars that are going to be there, we will read them during the show. And if you're there live, we'll be walking around the ring with a mic, and we'll get your questions there live. You can physically ask your favorite superstar, any deep down question that your little heart desires. So, guys, do not miss this VIP experience. Do not miss Global Force Wrestling in Poughkeepsie on the 22nd. Jonathan, who's going to be there? Because, they need to know.
It's a packed show. There's breaking news that they've just added none other than Mickie James and Magnus to the show. Jeff and Karen Jarrett will both be there live. Sanjay Dutt, Brian Myers, formerly known as Kurt Hawkins, Bobby Roode, Colt Cabana, Christina Von Eerie, Kimberly, Amazing Red. The list goes on and on and on. This is going to be a stellar show for 2016, and I can't wait for this one. We mentioned the 23rd. They are going to be at Rahway, New Jersey for Pro Wrestling Syndicate. It's going to be a little bit of a Global Force versus PWS situation, and that's the very next night, the 23rd. If you haven't got your tickets yet, you can go on Ticketmaster.com for the Poughkeepsie show, and you can go to ProWrestlingSyndicate.com for the 23rd.
It's going to be one hell of a weekend. And, Jonathan, I think it's time to let people know, too, we're going to be giving away some tickets, aren't we?
Yeah, we are. We got a lot of tickets to give away, and this is the time to see how loyal of fans we have. Put your money where your mouth is. We've got several ways for you to win some tickets. Steve, do you want to tell them about how to do that?
That's right, Jonathan. There's going to be a few different ways, so listen up, kids, or write this down, or just listen. First and foremost, Jonathan, we have an Instagram page. Jonathan, if you're not following us on Instagram, follow us at Another Wrestling Podcast. We want you guys to make a 15-second video, because that's as long as you can make it on there. So a 15-second video showing your love for Another Wrestling Podcast and why you want to see Global Force Wrestling. So basically make a 15-second video telling us how much you love Another Wrestling Podcast, and then tell us why, or how much you love Global Force Wrestling, or why you want to go see it in Poughkeepsie. And that's it. You post it on your timeline and tag us so that we can see it, because if we can't see it, then we can't put you in the running to win these tickets. So that's one way. Make a 15-second video on Instagram showing your love for Another Wrestling Podcast and Global Force Wrestling, and you will be in the running to win a pair of tickets. Jonathan, another way that you could be entered into this, because not everybody is video savvy or Instagram savvy, we have another way. Another way, Jonathan, you can tweet it, you can Instagram it also, or you can Facebook a photo of you showing maybe a sign saying that we love Another Wrestling Podcast, or we love Global Force Wrestling, something with AWP and GFW in it. Take a picture, send it to us. Like I said, tweet us, Instagram us, or Facebook us. You can tweet us at @AWrestlingPod. You can Facebook us at Another Wrestling Podcast, or Instagram is also Another Wrestling Podcast. But if you're getting confused, just go to AnotherWrestlingPodcast.com, and you'll find all the links on how to do all that stuff. And Jonathan, I think one last thing, a way to get a ticket, or to win tickets to the GFW show, is calling the AWP hotline. Now, the hotline number is 802-297-7672. That's 802-AWP-7672. Now, call the hotline. It's going to go right to like a voicemail. You're going to hear me saying, hey, leave a message. Leave a message and tell us why you love Another Wrestling Podcast and why you want to see Global Force Wrestling. I don't care what you guys say on the call. Like, cut your own promo if you want. But, we're going to pick the best out of each one of these ways, Jonathan, and you're going to win a pair of tickets. So basically, let me run through that really quick. First way, make a 15-second video, post it to Instagram, and tag Another Wrestling Podcast so that we can see it, because if we can't see it, don't forget, we're not going to know that you did it. 2, you can take a photo, post it on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and just tag us, or make sure that we can see it, of you guys showing us some love. Either say that you love Another Wrestling Podcast, or you love Global Force Wrestling, something with both of us in it, and show us the photo. And also, the last way to do it is just call the hotline, 802-297-7672. Leave a promo. Tell us why you love us. Tell us why you love Global Force Wrestling, and you will be in the running to win these tickets. We will give out the tickets next week. We will announce the winners, Jonathan, so you have 1 week to do all this. If you didn't hear it, just rewind the show and you'll hear me say it all again, Jonathan. I think I'm running out of breath right now. Please.
Yeah, and we want to thank you all for listening, and we are looking forward to meeting each and every one of you at the Global Force Wrestling Show. But today, it is episode number 89. It's a big show. We've got Brian Myers and Pat Buck joining us. They're going to be on opposite sides of the fence come the 22nd and 23rd. So Brian Myers is a GFW guy, and Pat Buck is a PWS guy. So this is going to be very interesting. We're going to have both those guys on the show today. I can't wait, but I really wanted to get into something that's happening right now in professional wrestling. I say right now, if you're listening to this in the future, it's already happened. But you can see maybe how good we are with our guesses. So this week, the rumor mill just went off the tracks, and all that you hear about is AJ Styles, Nakamura, Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows left NJPW, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and they're coming to the WWE. Everybody's got very strong opinions about this, and I think it's good for us to kind of talk about. This would sort of lead to what I'm thinking of as a New Japan invasion into the WWE. So I know, like I said, we all have our thoughts about this. What's your thoughts about this right now, Steve?
Jonathan, it's one of those things that are happening right now that at least I'm speaking just for AJ Styles alone right now. It was one of those things that it was like, when? It was just the question of when. He always, he was in Ring of Honor, in TNA, in New Japan, all over the indies right now, all over the place, and it was just, it was like, come on, when are they gonna bring him into the WWE? It's like one of those things to where he ain't getting any younger, and the time is now to make that move to get AJ Styles. And, whatever's happening in the WWE right now where they're actually getting other talent, I'm loving it, Jonathan, because I felt like we've been in a drought lately and they just really haven't reached out to any other stars from any other companies in a while. I know there's Samoa Joe and James Storm, but I'm talking about before even those guys. It just seems like it wasn't happening. Like, everybody was kind of like blacklisted almost. And it was like WWE doesn't want anybody ever again. They got their own system now. So I was kind of scared that nobody would ever have a chance if they worked somewhere else. And seeing AJ Styles come to the WWE, I think, is really big for pro wrestling, for WWE itself. And I'm kind of happy. I'm glad it's happening.
I think this is really cool. As you've seen this year, we've seen people kind of work with contracts. Samoa Joe got to keep his name. We've got some of the best talent that's ever been in the WWE right now, and it couldn't have come at a better time. We've got a lot of injuries in the world of professional wrestling, and so there's going to be a lot of things that need to happen sooner rather than later, and this could be the shot in the arm that the WWE needs and professional wrestling. A lot of people have talked about kind of being almost in a boom period again, like we're on the verge of another boom period, and I am totally in agreement with that. I think that it is time, now is the time. And with AJ Styles, he's proven, everybody knows him. He should have been in the WWE a lot sooner. To be completely honest, I don't know a lot about Nakamura, and I've seen a lot of stuff from him in recent months, and I think he's great. So I think there's a lot of awesome matchups that we can see from him. Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, one of the best tag teams that are out there right now. Obviously, Doc Gallows has spent some time in the WWE, so it would be great to have him back. And I just think that it's a win-win for everybody. WWE should really want to have the best of the best, and that's what they're getting right now. So I don't know if it's Triple H that's doing this. I don't know if it's Vince McMahon. I don't know who it is, but I think they're doing amazing things right now, and I'm just looking forward to this. I'm hoping that this invasion gets lined out and it happens sometime between now and WrestleMania, because if not, then I'm going to lose it before then.
Yeah, Jonathan, a lot of good things are happening this year, so it'll be quite interesting to see how they use them here and there. And like I said, AJ Styles and Nakamura, like I said, I'm not too familiar with him. I've seen some of his matches, but I'm not like some diehard. I've seen everything nonstop for how many years and whatnot. So I know the guy, but I don't know the guy. You know what I mean? So AJ Styles and Nakamura, though, I'll tell you right now, they need to go to the main roster, debut at the Royal Rumble or Raw or whatever. Don't do the whole NXT route. It's gonna kill it. It's gonna kill the whole. You don't need these big names in developmental. But on the other hand, for Gallows and Anderson, I could see them maybe going to NXT to do some stuff with the tag team division, but then again, the NXT tag division is awesome down there, and they don't really need these guys, so maybe we'll just see them all debut on the main roster, so it's going to be interesting the next few weeks, no doubt.
Yeah, that's absolutely right, and for any of you that are listening right now, if you have strong thoughts about this new invasion, the rumors, anything that you want to talk about, be sure. Steve mentioned it earlier in the podcast, but tweet us and follow us at A Wrestling POD. That is A Wrestling POD. But without further ado, we've got a lot to get to today, so let's throw it to Mr. Pat Buck. Joining us today may be the most well-rounded man in all of wrestling. He's done it all from behind-the-scenes work to training and performing as well. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Pat Buck. Now, Pat, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm good. Happy New Year. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate the compliment of being the most well-rounded man. Thank you.
We're actually based out of the East Coast, where you're pretty well-known, to say the least.
Okay.
But for a lot of listeners who may not be familiar with you, can you kind of give us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of the guy that never, I never signed a major contract, but I worked in, I don't know, it's kind of like, 6 degrees of Pat Buck, where I've kind of been around for a long, long time, but I'm just one of the guys, and there's many people like me that never really signed that major deal, but I have a pretty, I guess, decent resume of stuff that I've been doing for a long time in regards to professional wrestling, and since then have used what I've learned, what I've known, what I've done to kind of put together, run two, I guess, kind of three successful pro wrestling ventures in 2016, still going and kind of making a name for myself in a different way, as opposed to being, hoping that one day a major company would sign me to a contract. I mean, I always wanted to be a wrestler. I started off, I still am a wrestler. Shoot, in an hour I go to wrestling practice to train wrestlers, but I guess I'm the guy that and am I bitter or angry about it? I definitely am. And, but that, because of that, it kind of invoked a lot of passion, and I was able to, kind of create my own world because I couldn't be a part of, other places. So, I mean, I guess that's the best way to summarize it. I'm not really sure. So
no, that's perfect. Now we see a lot of this, these days. We talk about Colt Cabana and how he kind of, went to WWE and then came out of it and really created a better sort of situation for him than he had.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with you, this kind of independent spirit, which is great. And you mentioned it, you've got a lot of ventures out there, and you're known right now for being one of the best trainers around. So with somebody listening today and they may be tossing around the idea of becoming a wrestler or a referee or a wrestling personality, what would you consider the most important first step for someone like that?
I get a lot of that. I get a lot of emails about that too, about, what should I do? Or I get some crazy emails too about, people that are really delusional as far as being part of professional wrestling. But I think the truth is to answer that question is that I can't answer that question, is that the people that want to do it and want to be a part of it have already made up their minds. They just don't necessarily know where to go. And the big problem is that most people that decide I'm going to be in professional wrestling, the way it is now is that there are schools, not all over, but enough of them. And I can't stand it when people, kind of mock the fact that there's a lot of schools out there and that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. However, a lot of these places aren't very established or don't offer a good criteria to really training and teaching professional wrestling. And what I think the most heartbreaking thing is like I always tell everybody, like, look, I never made it, but I'm the guy doing the drills with you. I'm the guy that's running the promotion. I'm the guy that's putting together the cards. I'm the guy that's still actively competing on the independents, where other people, there are schools where they have someone, that doesn't have a lot of credentials running them. However, there are even more schools with people that have a higher marquee name than I do and are out just for your money and are out just to, they're out for their own selfish interests. And what I tell to anyone that if you've made that decision, because I can't bring that out of somebody, is go to a school and watch and observe and see, how the training is, see if the place is safe, see if it's clean, see if they have good shows attached to them. That's what you really got to do if you really want to take the first steps in professional wrestling. That's the most important thing, because you could end up wasting, I can't tell you how many people I know that are wasting, close to 15, 20 years of their life, and they've wrestled in the same spot, their entire career. That's not wrestling. That's nothing. So you got to go and figure out join a training school and figure out which one is best for you. And I hate saying it, but I think mine are. So just join my school and you'll be okay.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of that, you're part of, correct me if I'm wrong, but 2 schools.
Yes.
You're one of the trainers and co-owner of the Create Pro Wrestling Academy. And also you run the PWS school. Is that correct?
Yeah. Basically what kind of happened is, and they all both kind of fall under one umbrella, let's be honest. It just, I took I had a pretty decent background in training guys, I guess starting kind of, the first time I ever started training guys was at OVW, and, which used to be developmental for WWE. And I was there for so long, training alongside all the WWE contracted guys that, and most, the way it worked for most people is, WWE guys were, if you were signed a contract, you were probably there for, 2-3 years, sometimes 1 year, sometimes you're fired within 6 months. But if you were hired by them, you then went to the main roster. I'm a guy that said early in my career, I was only 3 or 4 years into the independents, and I said, you know what, I'm going to take a different path. I'm not going to go the journeyman route of a Colt Cabana or a Sami Zayn, because I didn't feel like I was doing so well in the independents. I could get bookings and I had a full schedule, but I just felt that my end game was to be hired by WWE because ECW was gone, WCW was gone. And I saw that a couple people were very successful moving to OVW and getting in that way. And to me, I was like, you know what? And also OVW was 7 days a week and independent wrestling was 2 days a week. So I moved down there in 2005, to pursue a dream. And I was part of that system for 4.5 years, which, and I did anything and everything that a talent could do there. So much so that there was times where they had a revolving door of trainers, but they always had a beginner program, that was ran most of the time. It had different trainers at different moments. Like Nick Dinsmore was a trainer for a while, then he would come and go. Elijah Burke was a head trainer, but there were days where they couldn't make it. So they had enough trust and faith in me to run their very, very beginner program. And that was my first time, and I was complimented because I'm using the training I was getting from just being a talent and being wrestling 3-4 days a week on shows. And, I was only like probably 7 years in at the time, or maybe about 6 years in at the time, and teaching guys. And I'm like, wow, I'm actually teaching at a beginner class at OVW. It's kind of cool. But I only did it like part-time. And then OVW their deal got pulled. I moved to NXT, early stages, which was FCW, to do the same thing, because I wanted to be a part of WWE, because I realized that that's the only place I could offer full-time employment at the time. I followed that down, and because all my friends were down there, and they're like, you can get a job here. It's a different system. It didn't work out that way. However, I joined their beginner program to kind of prove myself at NXT, FCW. And by the end of that beginner program, I was helping teach the beginner program, which was kind of, a compliment too, that it would, be me and Steve Kern and Norman Smiley in 3 different rings showing these newer guys how to wrestle. But yet I couldn't get a contract, which was, but I had a lot of faith. I'd be the guy that worked with a lot of contracted talent all throughout my years. But I just couldn't convince at the time Laurinaitis would not hire me. That's a shoot. That's just what it is. Do I know the reason why? No. I don't know if I'm just too short or too ugly or he just didn't go for me. I have no idea. So, but then it just came to a point where I said, I can't do this. I can't chase this anymore. And I moved back up north, and I was the head trainer for NYWC, and things didn't work out there. And I started promoting a show, and with PWS, and have a partner, Eric, who, I did a show, and then after that, I was like, you know what, I'm going to try to open a school. And everyone thought I was crazy for doing it. Like, it's not going to do well. It's too early. And 12 guys signed up. And from that 12, it's migrated, roughly, there'll probably be about between 30 and 45 people there tonight. It always changes, and the number, some people, and I keep my doors open to outside guys that want to come in and train and get a workout. And it's very structured, very organized. And that kind of segued to, Kurt Hawkins. Brian Myers has been a lifelong friend of mine. When he was contracted, he was bored to death, and he's like, I want to stay in ring shape in case they call me. And, he could have gone to any school he wanted to on Long Island, and he would make the trek to come out to Jersey and train with me. And he was just like, man, I have so much fun here. It's great. And I said, I always wanted to open up a school in Long Island. Queens, Long Island is really home for me. And we did that. So I got, the dojo going on in Jersey and Creative Pro. And I'm there pretty much. I spread my time half and half a week training, the upcoming stars of tomorrow. Well,
people are going to ask, so what's the best way to get a hold of you for information on either one of those places? CreativeProWrestling.com, or you can go to ProWrestlingSyndicate.com.
PWS in Google. Follow me on Twitter. Buck Never Stops. You could always, just creativeprowrestling.com is probably for those New York people, and, ProWrestlingSyndicate.com for your Jersey folk. But, some people travel from Philly. Everyone has different, desire levels.
Okay.
So.
All right. Now, it's obvious that you've been teaching and training future superstars, and it's become a huge part of your life. At this point in your career, do you feel that you get more enjoyment training the new people or actually performing in the ring?
It's both an incredible amount of intrinsic joy when you get, I believe the only reason why staying in professional wrestling, and probably the same for yourself, when you produce a really good show or when you get to experience something that's really, on a high level, there's little moments of joy that come out from both things. And I can't say which one's more or less. They're both different. There's nothing more satisfying to see, to see a whole show of your students at, Creative Pro. For example, our last show, we crowned a champion. And, I could see it I've been training guys for a little over probably 4 or 5 years now, full time. And, with Kurt Hawkins, Brian Myers, it's been about 2 for him, about 2 years. But, he's starting to have that fatherly joy when we see our students are like, wow, they're good. They're doing it. And it's very rewarding. At the same time, I'm a selfish bastard, and I there's no bigger high than actually performing and actually being in that ring. And still doing it. There's no greater joy than that too. They're both very rewarding as long as there's some sort of, because about this, pro wrestling gets dogged so much by people, and even with people who love it, who are supporters. So it's really nice to kind of just inject a little bit of, positivity and real desire and real happiness into, into some sort of, or energy into, whether it's performing or getting that reward back, because nobody's getting rich off this except for, people up there.
Yeah.
So you got to do something about it. I'm lucky to have my living from this, but you got to have enough of those moments or else it's really not worth your time. So I'm very blessed, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you co-own one of the hottest independent promotions in the entire country, Pro Wrestling Syndicate. With so many other promotions out there, they seem to pop up overnight. What was the driving force behind creating PWS?
I think consistency. It just was, like I said, I couldn't be a part of someone else's world, so I really wanted to create my own. I kind of quote that a lot. I don't know where the hell I stole it from, but it was one of those things where I saw there's a huge. I love independent wrestling. However, you don't really find a whole lot of reliable people. You don't find a lot of consistent, good businessmen. You don't find almost any of that. And not a lot of accountability. If I mess up, it's my fault. If something goes wrong, that's completely on me. And you just don't find a lot of people that well plan out. I try to plan my stuff out months in advance, or really, really care about the talent, keep them motivated, keep them happy. But a lot of it too is just being, a prepared person by, a lot of the hours, I'm training guys at night, but during the day, it's all focused about, whether it's booking a show is more than just having a ring and getting wrestlers there and thinking of a card. I deal with everything from guys I've just trained that are my own guys to the biggest stars in wrestling that I'm able to reach that aren't under contract with a major organization, from legends, from current independent acts, you name it. I deal with them. So that there's a whole, it's a lot to be a promoter. And also there's a lot of things with, little things you never think of, like building policies and, how a town perceives professional wrestling, hanging up posters, going to Monday Night Raw and being that guy that's putting on, little flyers on people's windows. That's me, and I'm still doing that. So, figuring out Facebook advertising, it's more than just, a lot of promoters like to just make they'll make a bad poster, a poor image of a wrestling event, and then they just put it up online. And then when 20 people show up, they go, they have every excuse in the world. It's it's a make or break. You got to figure out how to get people into that building, and trying to figure out delivering a show that doesn't insult that one embraces wrestling, but doesn't insult your audience integrity, and that really caters to not just smart fans, although I do love, smart fans and the diehard PWG fans or even Ring of Honor fans. You have to give something that satisfies them, but at the same time, you really do have to reach out to those who just know mainstream stuff. You have to reach out to the grandmas and grandpas with the families and the kids. You got to figure out something that's going to just maximize your crowd capacity, and that's what I'm focused on. And really just trying to build a brand or build a roster of guys that are, and I'm still trying to do it. And it's not completely on me all the time, but just build an entire brand of guys that are all quality, not, bad performers, or that they have something to offer. And just figuring out a creative way to do it and to keep doing it. I think consistency is the most important thing. Like, even if your show's terrible, if you're doing one the next month, like, just keep improving. And I think, when I watch the early shows of PWS, I really cringe. Like, there's no lights, I'm renting someone else's ring, the color scheme is off, matches are poorly timed, it's a 4.5-hour show. That's another thing. Independent shows are too long. Like, it's terrible. And I'm a victim of that too. But guys in the independents don't know a lot about timing matches. No promoters know that. So it's tough to, pull out a successful, everyone sees WWE and think, oh, this is easy. I can just do this at the high school. There's a lot to it. Yeah.
Well, you're obviously doing something right, because you caught the eye of Global Force Wrestling's owner, Jeff Jarrett. Can you tell us a little bit how this partnership came about?
Yeah. It just went around the time that, before Jeff was talking about Global Force, Jeff was just one of the guys that we brought in that, we try to keep the cards different and bring in different people. Like, just so someone looks at our poster and goes, oh, that's kind of cool. And Jeff was one of those guys. And I believe it was, it wasn't it was like a year and a half ago, I'd say, about that. It was kind of before, or maybe even 2 years ago. I'm kind of mixed up on time. And Jeff was booked in our show. And I picked Jeff up from the airport. And it was kind of, right away we just started kind of talking about different things. And he doesn't know me from the hole in the wall. He has no idea who I am. And I think he kind of saw for himself over the course, because he had a clinic here. It's when he actually was right after he announced stuff for Global Force, because he had a seminar here. And I think he was really taken back by the amount of quality talent, like so much so where he pulled me aside and he's like, what are you doing that's, I forget the words he used, that's manifesting this talent. Like, how is this? I've never seen a lot of these guys before. And what are you, well, we train our asses off, 4 days a week. And over time, I think he's been back 2, 3, 4 times. And I have a positive relationship with him. And when Global Force was doing those, the baseball stadium tour, I think they were heavily reliant on some of my, guys that I've built PWS around, Kevin Matthews and the Bodies. I mean, I myself was on a loop, Brian Myers, not to say credit for them, but I think the way we featured them, kind of like shown a spotlight on them where they were used for a lot of things. And I think it's just really good timing. I wasn't going to run an event in January and February this year because weather is so incredibly unpredictable that I had my ass handed to me last year when I ran in a blizzard. And when you have Jushin Liger versus Colt Cabana and there's a blizzard, the blizzard's going to win, even though people would like to see that, event. But with Jeff, the right timing, in January, I didn't really have a whole lot going on. I was like, this could be something cool, something refreshing. They have their, set roster and I have my set roster. And I think it'd be a real interesting dynamic because we have guys that have done both and kind of just put the ball together. This is a legitimately co-promoted show. It's not like we're booking, global guys, and it is completely promoted down the middle, finance-wise, you name it. And we're trying to structure. We haven't announced any matches yet, which will go up very, very soon. But it'll be a really strong, entertaining card where it's basically we're the hometown guys and they're the outsiders. And, it's should be a really awesome event. I'm pumped for it.
Well, it's not all fun and games with the PWS GFW partnership. Obviously, on January 23rd, Team PWS will take on Team GFW live in Rahway, New Jersey. Objectively as possible, what do you think the outcome of this match will be?
Well, actually, it's not just one match. It'll be multiple,
Okay.
There'll be, I'm going to say between 4, at least 4, could be 5 or 6, as far as this guy's from Global Force, this guy's from PWS, and we're going to be announcing them relatively soon because, I mean, the show is 3 weeks away. So, you know, of course, I hope my guys will, you know, outperform and win. And I mean, shoot, I'm wrestling too myself. But I'm really just thinking that there's no, you know, there's no way to lose this. I mean, there's no way to, you know, I think the goal in mind is that both promotions walk away a little bit better than when they came in. I think it's interesting that Global Force, while they don't have a set, you know, huge, maybe television network or deal yet, I truly have faith in Jeff that he's going to pull something out. He's one of, you know, the brightest minds out there, and he has, you know, the resume to do so and has done so. And I think it's really interesting that, you know, I myself am kind of more of the underground guy that has his little fight club already, that has his set guys. And I think it's an interesting dynamic to take this, you know, future televised company that wants to do these big things against this nitty gritty, you know, Rahway Rec Center bunch of cast-offs fighting them. So I'm, you know, and I know one thing is that the match is, it's going to be, a lot of people are going to come to the show not knowing who any of the PWS guys are. And they're going to leave going, holy crap. And I think that's just good business, because who knows? There might be one more show after this. You know, we're not going anywhere. So I'm curious. I'm just hoping we pack it in and, you know, and do something great.
Now, can people just get tickets on ProWrestlingSyndicate.com?
Yeah, ProWrestlingSyndicate.com. Tickets are first and second row are sold out. Rows 3 to 5 are moving as we speak, and then there's general admission for the bleachers. So, you know, if we could hit a capacity crowd of, you know, 1,500 or so, that'd be pretty badass. And then, of course, the night before is, I will be a part of that too when we're in Poughkeepsie.
Yes.
I think tickets can get from GlobalForceWrestling.com for tickets to the events on Friday, 22nd.
We've mentioned earlier today that you've been a wrestler, referee, promoter, co-owner, trainer, everything else. What do you see next, especially 2016, a new year? What's next for you this year?
I don't know. You know, I just put out, I would love to run more, you know, I'm in the process of trying to get more shows that are less risk and more reward, because it's hard being, you know, with independent wrestling to, if I wanted to run a different town, and I do, but if I wanted to run a new area, hypothetically, you know, Philadelphia or Boston, it's risky. If I don't know the building, if I don't know the area, I don't really have a street team to do so as an independent, just go, hey, I'm going to do this. For me, I've kind of delved into the world of trying to sell professional wrestling events and kind of, you know, let people know that for a, you know, certain budget or for a certain, you know, deal, I can bring a fully functional, because I own all my own equipment. You know, I own 3 professional rings. You know, I own a stage. I own all the lighting system. That was kind of my goal, because I realized that outside of WWE, and I guess Ring of Honor, I'm not really sure how they work. You know, I don't really know a wrestling company that owns their own equipment, like full throttle as far as like entranceway and production and things like that. So I want to make sure that I could do that and kind of be able to travel from, you know, city to city and pull off events. So that's kind of an area of focus for me. In addition, I'd like to expand my training schools. You know, we're always welcoming more students or new students and people that, you know, a lot of times people want to knock off the cobwebs that have been wrestling for a while and they come and train with me. My big goal, which I don't know if I can handle this year, but is to kind of have what in a smaller capacity, what the WWE Performance Center has. And what I mean by actually kind of have a different, but maybe even perhaps slightly better suited for my interest place where, a place in either on Long Island or New Jersey that's big enough to have, you know, 2 professional wrestling rings, a full gym, and that could actually do, you know, could have shows there, that I could actually make my own building and allow people to, you know, whether they want to run their own promotion, whether I'll be running my own promotion, but have a fully, you know, capable building that can train wrestlers, promote shows, that's big enough to do so. But for the time being, it's a lot of money. I know Santino Marella has something like that, the Battle Arts Academy. That would be a big goal for me if I could do that within a year. I think I'll need, at least 2 for that. And just, I'm the guy that when I'm not doing stuff with PWS, I'm driving a ring truck and I'm renting my ring out. I'm wrestling elsewhere. Occasionally, I have a couple, matches coming up for January and February, or I'm working in my schools, or on Sundays we're having birthday parties with professional wrestling. I have a very crazy wrestling schedule that's not the cool, I'm not Cole Cabana ready to fly over the world and do, cool wrestling, yes, be at the merch table and then wrestle. I'm the guy that's, driving the ring truck. I might be wrestling. I might not be wrestling. I'm running the birthday party. I'm running PWS. I'm wrestling on PWS. So it's a full schedule like that. I just hope it just continues and gets better, and that I can maybe bring some people into this and just do good business. And, I think I want to focus in 2016 on helping out a lot of other independents, especially in the area, because there's a lot of good stuff that, I think people, I think I could help out a lot of people and kind of just, improve the way some places are ran. And I'm hoping I get that chance this year. And I think, things are lining up where I can do a lot of great things. So I guess we'll see.
Well, we want to thank you so much for your time today. We know that obviously you're a very busy man. Just one more time for anybody who didn't catch it earlier, can you provide us with any of the links that they need to find you or anything you're associated with?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, ProWrestlingSyndicate.com, all that good stuff, CreativeProWrestling.com. You can also, I'm a fellow podcaster such as yourself. You can listen to my podcast at 2.5wrestlers.com or on iTunes or Stitcher. And it's an awful show, but it's just kind of bullshit. It's loosely based around professional wrestling. And I think that's it. GlobalForceWrestling.com and Buck Never Stops on Twitter, Instagram, and all the like. But thank you guys for having me, and I appreciate being on another wrestling podcast.
All right, once again, thanks to Pat Buck, guys, gals, everybody for listening. And make sure you head on over to GlobalForceWrestling.com, head on over to ProWrestlingSyndicate.com, pick up your tickets for the 22nd and 23rd for Global Force Wrestling and Global Force Wrestling versus PWS. Guys, we have a lot of interviews on here. We have consistently had an interview on the show since we started every week. If you missed an episode on here, head on over to our YouTube page, subscribe to it, youtube.com/Another Wrestling POD, Another Wrestling Pod, and we'll put up all the interviews on there. We'll put up live interviews. We'll put up a lot of other stuff. So make sure you head on over there and subscribe to that as well. Jonathan, you may know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. Huh?
I know why you're here.
That was my segue. That was my segue for invasion angles, baby.
This is one of my favorite things. It goes back to kind of like dream matches. Everybody used to say, "Man, I would love to see Kevin Steen versus John Cena." Well, guess what? We got to see that because of somewhat of an invasion angle. So I love these types of situations. It sets up a lot of really cool things, and with the WWE starting to kind of have these gang warfare mentality, we see the League of Nations, and then Roman Reigns, Ambrose, and and the Usos. It's kind of like leading up to these sorts of things. So we've seen this in wrestling throughout the entire history of wrestling, where an outsider group maybe comes in and kind of feuds with a group for a while. One of my favorites of all time was actually the invasion angle that happened in 2001 whenever Shane supposedly bought WCW, and then Vince had WWF, and then Stephanie had ECW. So you had ECW people coming out, you had WCW people coming out, and you had WWF people coming out. Now we can all debate about how this was done and if it was done right, how long it should have went. I still think it could be going on today personally, but I loved it. I loved the Invasion pay-per-view. It's probably one of my favorite pay-per-views of all time. I just can remember watching that in awe and saying, I can't believe that this is actually happening. And sure enough, you started to see WCW people coming over to WWF television, and it was just mind-blowing at the time. So
yeah, man, I honestly, when that happened, when the whole Vince bought WCW kind of thing, it was great. And then at the end of the episode, you're like, crap, what are they going to do with all these guys now? So it was kind of interesting to see what they actually did with the guys who came in and all that stuff. So it was funny because at the time, it was just, I had no idea. He bought WCW, but now what do you do when you buy the competition? Do you bring them in and put them on your show? So it was interesting how they split up all these things, a few months and almost even a year or so after that whole thing happened. So it was pretty good.
Yeah, do you have any that come to mind to you when you're talking about invasions?
Man, I'm going back to even, everybody talks about an NWO coming in doing that. As great as that was, I still loved the whole ECW invades WWF, when they were sitting in the front row, and then they had the, WWE or WWF versus ECW shows. I thought that was great. Paul Heyman leading the guys in, and, Sabu would come out, Taz was there, Dudley's, all that stuff. And I thought that was great because I was really big into ECW. They would always come over here to Poughkeepsie. I saw pay-per-views here, house shows, or, TV tapings. It was awesome. So it was kind of cool seeing this because it was at that time also where you just didn't think it would ever happen. Like, you didn't think this company would ever do anything with this other company. And, honestly, I think that's where the money is these days. Taking your company and going against another company, it's best for business. It's definitely unique no matter how many times you do it or who you do it with. I think you're still going to watch just for the, if factor of, well, if they do this, what will happen? Or if they do that, could this lead? It's an endless possibility. So I was definitely a big fan of the ECW invading WWF angle, and I thought that was really cool then because it was kind of, it actually just made the Attitude Era pretty much. I mean, they were kind of out of their hokey era, and they didn't really know quite where to go, so they kind of, hooked up with ECW a little bit, and so right from there, that's how we started getting into, Raw is War, and, all that crap, so it was great.
Yeah, I remember watching it, and the one that I remember the most is when they had the 3 big Raw letters, and,
yeah.
And it was Sabu that had climbed up on top of it, and I'm pretty sure he was inebriated, and he did like a dive, and people had to catch him. It's bad that was the only thing that I really remember. I remember also Jerry Lawler just dogging ECW like every chance that he could get, and I watched a lot of the documentaries and stuff, and he just said, because Vince was kind of payrolling or helping pay for some of the talents at the time or whatever, there was like a talent exchange, and Lawler was like, they just badmouth us, and like, you're paying them to do it, and so that was great, but it, like you said, it set up some really great stuff, and we got to see ECW come to WWE several times after that.
Yeah, Jonathan, we never talk about this too much. I mean, everybody listening to us, they might say, oh, you guys always talk about WWE, this and that, but, we talk about other things. And Jonathan, this one other thing I kind of want to ask you about. What are your thoughts about the whole Aces and Eights in TNA? Because honestly, that was probably one of their best things they had going for them. Then it started to get a little bit crazy with everybody joining Aces and Eights. But what did you think about that? I actually thought it was pretty good until it just really blew up where, it was almost getting ridiculous NWO style where it was too many people. But I thought it was good in the beginning and for the most part. But what are your thoughts about the Aces and Eights in TNA? And, they pretty much disbanded.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a good idea in theory. It was hot off the heels of the whole Sons of Anarchy thing, and a lot of people, like right now, what's hot on Netflix is this Making of Murderer show. So I would not be surprised if somewhere in professional wrestling somebody isn't going to be like a murderer or whatever. Nails is going to get called back to be in the WWE again or whatever. But so it was real. It was kind of gritty, and you could picture it like a bunch of biker guys, becoming a wrestling group and and they had their own kind of people. They had their own music. They had their own entrance, and it felt kind of like a different part of TNA. So. It was almost like they were warring, against each other, which was great. I think in the end they had way too many people, and some of the caliber of people people who were in Aces and Eights just didn't really make sense. So I think it was a victim of either writing or they were trying to hurry it along or whatever. But I think it was good. I think that it definitely should get some credit for being original enough to be in wrestling this day and age.
Sure, and out of all these invasions and all these takeovers, everybody's like, oh, well, they're just copying NWO, or they're just copying what ECW did, or they're just copying. Everything's a copy, ladies and gentlemen. Things get copied, but it's what you can do with that copy, and make better, and try to improve on. So, some people did, some people didn't. And, there's just a handful. And, guys, I just want to remind everybody, if you're listening, let us know what your favorite invasion angle was. Let us know. Tell us. Facebook us at Another Wrestling Podcast. Tweet us at A Wrestling POD. Anything you want. Let us know what your favorite was. We'll respond to you, Hey, we even have a hotline. I said in the beginning, you can give us a call. And let us know, what your thoughts are. Voice your opinions, people. 802-297-7672. 802-AWP 7672. Let us know. We want to hear from you, too. We have Brian Myers, formerly known as Kurt Hawkins from the WWE, joining us right now to talk more about Global Force Wrestling and beyond.
All right, it's awesome getting to sit down with today's guest. His accomplishments are too lengthy to mention, but above all else, he is exactly what we are, and that is a fan of professional wrestling. You've seen him wrestle all over the world, and pretty soon you'll catch him in the Northeast for Global Force Wrestling. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Mr. Brian Myers.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks for coming on the show today, and obviously, if your social media is any indication, 2015 was pretty awesome for you. What were some of the high points for you last year?
Man, it's really tough to lock down just one thing, but actually I kind of just said it right there. My favorite thing that I got to do and the most fun thing was the Global Force TNA invasion, and that culminated in that lethal lockdown match, and it was a lengthy match and a lot of fun. It filled with a lot of superstar talent and stuff. So that was just a complete blast, and it just all kind of came out of nowhere very unexpectedly. So it was a great time.
Awesome. Now it would seem that your 2016 starting out on the right foot as well. On January 22nd and 23rd, you're going to be part of Global Force Wrestling's first ever Northeast AMP tour. You've wrestled all over the world for many different companies and promotions. What makes Global Force Wrestling stand out from those other companies?
Well, it's something new and fresh and different. They're trying to get, off the ground and doing what they can to get noticed. And this is a great opportunity to finally have a live show in the Northeast where, I'm completely biased, but I think, the best and most passionate and diehard pro wrestling fans are here in the Northeast, I see them almost every weekend, so I should know. So it's just going to be, an incredible show and also a great opportunity for fans to see what Global Force is all about firsthand.
Now, this isn't your first go-around with Global Force Wrestling. How did you become involved with GFW?
I think in a number of ways. Mainly, a good buddy of mine, Luke Gallows, he runs shows in the Carolinas and Georgia under the Wrestle America banner, and he knew that Global Force was starting up, and he was booking Jeff Jarrett, and he wanted Jeff to see me wrestle live, so he put me on the same show as Jeff, and I got to wrestle Jimmy Rave live on one of his events last spring, and I got to meet Jeff, and he saw me, and he was, impressed, so I did what I came to do. And that started their relationship from there. And then, and since then, I've become very good friends with Sanjay Dutt, who's very involved in Global Force Wrestling and been a part of a lot of their shows. So all the tapings that were done out in Vegas I was a part of, and a lot of the live events that was part of the Grand Slam tour at baseball stadiums throughout the summer. And now this weekend, which is, going to be really exciting because it's my home turf.
That's awesome. Now, during your previous times in Global Force when you were wrestling, was there anybody that you weren't specifically familiar with before getting into the show that you that maybe stood out to you or that you were impressed with?
on the last taping in Las Vegas, I got to wrestle Congo Kong for the first time, and before meeting him or seeing him at these Las Vegas tapings, I was pretty unfamiliar with him. I really didn't know who he was, and after the match, I had seen him work, and I was slightly impressed. But after being in there with him, he was super impressive, big man, and it was just incredible. So I would love to wrestle him again, even but he's somebody who I don't think the wrestling world is all that familiar with, but Global Force is trying to put their stamp on him and, get him out there more. And I think once people see them, they're going to be blown away.
Awesome. Now, there was some kind of great news today. On January 22nd, you will be wrestling in the Mid-Hudson Civic Center in Poughkeepsie, New York for Global Force Wrestling, but the show's also being sponsored by Create a Pro. Now, which is what you run and help train out of. So last time that we got to speak with you, it wasn't new by any means, but you were kind of just getting your footing, I guess, in the world of training. So how's training going these days, and is attendance still really well?
Yeah, it's really just been like an incredible experience for me. I have nothing even remotely bad to say about it. One of the best decisions I ever made in my entire life. Myself and my longtime friend and business partner, Pat Buck, who also was involved with Pro Wrestling Syndicate, we just one day, like on a whim, I was still with WWE. I said, I'd love to open a school. It was always be a dream of mine. And he said, hey, man, I'd love to be a part of that. And we went in at it at 50-50 partners. And we're coming up on 2 years in March, which I just can't believe it's been 2 years. It just feels like, like time has just, gone by so fast. But just everything about it is so great, man. It's like everyone who trains there, all my students, we're a team, and there's a real camaraderie, and everyone's there to help each other and just loves the business and wants to learn about it, and they're all very passionate about it. And it's just a great, positive place. And now we've been able to run shows that the students perform on, which, I well up with pride, like a proud dad, when I see them, because it's just like to see how far a lot of them have come in just a short amount of time is really mind blowing. We'll do tape reviews of the shows, following them the first day of practice. We have tape review, and I'll be more critical about my match than theirs because I'm kind of impressed with how well and how serious they've all taken it. It's just a great thing.
Now, is there anybody that we should be keeping our eyes out for that's coming from your school?
I'm really proud of all of them, and I don't want to give anyone a bigger head than they need to. But there's a good 5 or 6 of them that are really well on their way, and they're starting to do things other places and get other bookings and stuff. So it's very cool. But anything you'd want to know about Create a Pro, if you're interested in joining or even checking out our live shows, we usually run Sundays in Hicksville, New York, and that's where the school is located. And you can go to the website createaprowrestling.com.
Awesome. Now, I mentioned it. You're going to be there live on January 22nd from our backyard, Poughkeepsie, New York. Do you have any personal favorite memories of competing in the Civic Center before this upcoming show?
I had the last time I wrestled there, it was I want to say it was the summer of 2013, and I wrestled Alex Riley, who's somebody I think is just kind of criminally underrated and underutilized and doesn't get its fair shake. And we had a really good, fun match, man. The crowd was really into it, and I had my Mets tights on and got a ton of heat. It must be a lot of Yankee fans in Poughkeepsie because they were all into me. And it was just a great time. It was everything that pro wrestling is supposed to be. And anytime I've ever been in that building, I just adore it because I know all the history of it and that all those original Raws took place from there and things like that. So it's just a cool place to be.
Now, we found out today it was released that it will be you, Trevor Lee, and Andrew Everett taking on Kevin Matthews, Pat Buck, and Amazing Red. What are your thoughts kind of going into this with about your teammates and your opponents that night?
Well, Trevor Lee and I are already proven, we're former TNA Tag Team champions. That match itself is designed to be a kind of a Global Force versus PWS preview, I guess, of the following day.
Mm-hmm.
And, just read those names that match is going to be go, 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 just nothing but action. So I'm thrilled to be a part of it, and I think it's going to be an absolute blast. Awesome. For me, all my opponents, my partners, and the fans,
Awesome. Now, the very next night, you mentioned it, you'll be taking part in the Pro Wrestling Syndicate Global Force Wrestling event, and it's no secret that you kind of have ties to both companies. Will there be a conflict of interest for you on January 23rd?
No, I already, at the last PWS event, I showed my true colors, and I helped Jeff Jarrett, and I officially joined Team Global Force. So there is no conflict of interest. It's pretty clear cut. And I'll be taking on Chris Payne in the Falls Count Anywhere match, which I'm looking forward to that because, I need to just end this guy. We've been going at it for several months now for the Pro Wrestling Syndicate television title. And I think this is going to be our last hurrah. So it's going to be a winner-take-all type of scenario. And I'm for sure I'm not going to be going there wearing my awesome wrestling tights. I'm wearing jeans and taping my fists and ready to kick some ass.
Yeah, I was just going to ask if you had to prepare a little differently for that since it's...
it's a different mentality. And, if they're telling me Falls Count Anywhere, that means, there's a lot of options that are running through my head, and the match itself should be pretty unpredictable.
Awesome. Now, we kind of got into you training and that, but something I'm very interested in, you have always seemed to be just like such a fan of professional wrestling, and you love the history of it, and you go out of your way to kind of to show that. And since you're doing a lot of training with new people, do you feel like that you still learn stuff from the business, even with all of your years in wrestling?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, I always say, and, anyone who knows anything about this business will tell you, you never stop learning. The business is always evolving and it's different. You can't just one day go, well, yep, I got it all. It doesn't work that way, It just keeps going and going, and it's constantly changing. Even now, we just had Arn Anderson at Creative Pro doing a seminar, and he was explaining that some things, they're just dated and done and gone, and the business has evolved, and it's going to keep doing that forever, and you got to keep up with the time. And then on the other part of that is, I got into this because I loved it and I adored it as a kid, and I was a fan, and I always thought if I didn't have that mentality, or I lost that mentality, then it wouldn't be worth it, because it's such a difficult business, and you're away from your family, and sometimes the money isn't what it should be for what you're doing, the things you're putting your body through. So if you don't absolutely love it, it's probably not for you, because it's just too tough, and I never want to lose that boyhood sense of wonder.
That's awesome. Now, you are no stranger to this, but the rumor mill in wrestling has been working overtime this week with the prospect of AJ Styles, Nakamura, Carl Anderson, and Doc Gallows possibly on their way to WWE. As someone who is like immersed in the business, but also a fan of the business, what are your thoughts about this?
I mean, obviously my cell phone has been blown up about this situation. I've been like little kid on Christmas Eve excited about it. I think it's exciting. It's different. It's, a shakeup that mainstream wrestling for sure desperately needed. And I'm just looking forward to see how it plays out. I think it's the coolest thing ever. It's comparable to when the Radicals came to WWE, or, the Outsiders going to WCW. It's just very, very interesting, and I hope it's just a success for the business.
Absolutely.
As a whole.
Now, do you think, just personally, there's no wrong answer here, but do you think that they should have to kind of go to NXT, or do you think that they're fine to go straight to the main roster?
Me personally, I think, and this isn't to discredit NXT, but NXT is still a developmental, thing.
Yes.
I mean, these are four of the biggest stars and most successful, stars, proven stars in the whole world. I think, for anything but to be immediately thrust into the main roster is just kind of ridiculous.
Yeah, awesome. Now, speaking of WWE, the network recently added the show Breaking Ground. I don't know if you've watched much of it or not, but if you have, do you feel like it's a pretty honest representation of kind of what it takes these days to be in the WWE?
Yeah, I watched the whole series. I enjoyed it. I look forward to watching it, so I must have enjoyed it. I thought, and I've seen every documentary ever. I thought it was pretty much the most inside view of the business that's ever been portrayed. You know, there wasn't a lot of what you would call kayfabe about it. It was pretty upfront. I thought there was maybe some fake situations, some forced and phony situations, but that's really nitpicking. I enjoyed that. That was cool. And I always tell my students, you know, I think nowadays, considering how many people they have at that performance center, getting signed really isn't that difficult. It's navigating the waters of the performance center and surviving that daily grind and, you know, being ahead of that class. I think that's what the real work is. That's the real hard part nowadays.
Okay. All right. Now, obviously, you know that your longtime friend and old tag team partner, Zack Ryder, is teamed up with Mojo Rawley to form the Hype Bros. Do you like this pairing between the two of them?
I don't know if I like it. I do think Zach's doing everything he can in his power, and Mojo too for that to make it work. You know, they've been dealt this hand, and they're playing it. You know, and seeing where it goes. So you can't fault them for that. I just think it's tough. You know, when you're on NXT, that they film however many episodes in one day. You know, and you do one match. So it's like, okay, so you're going to be represented on NXT television once in a month's worth of programming, you know, so it's tough to get some steam if you're not really in the main picture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like I said, they're doing everything they can to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, for somebody who's a big wrestling memorabilia nerd like me, the news broke last year also that you will have a brand new action figure coming out created by Figures Toy Company. What was the process like for creating this new figure for you?
Well, a little known fact is that I am like basically the sole culprit for making this all kind of happen in the first place.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I ran into the guy Chris, who's behind the project, just by accident, kind of by chance at a convention I did, and he knew I was a figure nerd, and we started talking shop, and he was saying that he was doing the ROH toy, and then I said, well, these are real cool and whatnot. He was showing me a lot of like prototypes and things like that, and I said, well, these are great, but what's stopping you guys from doing like independent guys or just signing anybody? And he said, well, really nothing. He said, nothing to his boss. So he pitched it to his boss. You know, I kind of put together a list of top guys for him who I thought they should approach and, you know, make it happen. And there you go. It's just been going and going. So we've been waiting a lifetime for these. I mean, everything so far is looked great. A lot of the molds of the heads look awesome, and all the prototypes and the artwork and stuff. So I just can't wait. It just feels like I've been waiting forever.
Yeah, we got to talk to him at the New England Fan Fest, and he showed us some of the prototypes, and there were like Blue Meanie and some just amazing ones. So yeah, we're definitely looking forward to those.
Yes. So when it's all said and done, there will be a Ring of Honor line, a Ring of Honor talent, a Superstars of the Independence line, which I'll be represented in. And then there'll even be a Legends line, like, you know, Blue Meanie and Jim Cornette and guys like that are involved in.
Awesome. Now, we know you're busy. You got a lot on your plate coming up, but can you please tell us once again where people can kind of follow you on social media and anything that you want to know about Global Force Wrestling or Create a Pro?
Sure. Well, I'll just overall encourage everyone to, you know, if they're in the area, that they got to come check out these Global Force shows. Coming up on the 22nd and 23rd, it's Poughkeepsie and Rahway. The tickets for Poughkeepsie are available at Ticketmaster.com, and the PWS tickets in Rahway are available on Pro Wrestling Syndicate.com. Very easy to find at the Kurt Hawkins. Haven't changed the name because I will lose my blue check. Same for Instagram, and I've also opened up my website, which I sell exclusive merch on. You could all my upcoming events and where you can find me are on there to see if I'm coming to a town near you, and that is at MyersMerch.com. MYERS merch.com.
Awesome. Well, we want to thank you so much. We can't wait to see you live. There's also a VIP experience for Global Force Wrestling. You can add it to any ticket for an additional $25, and if I'm not mistaken, you get to meet the man, Brian Myers, earlier in the day before the show starts. So come on out and do that as well.
That's a hell of an incentive right there.
That's right. Well, we want to thank you so much, and just congrats on all your success, and we can't wait to see you live in Poughkeepsie.
Thanks, man. It's going to be fun.
And guys, stay tuned. January 9th, Saturday at 9 p.m., you'll see Joel Gertner like you've never seen him before doing comedy in Poughkeepsie, New York at the Laugh It Up Comedy Club. Make sure you head on over to laughitup.net for more information. Also coming February 13th at 7 p.m., we have a WWE legend, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, doing his 2x4 tour in Poughkeepsie. Guys, laughitup.net for more information. And if you like our show, make sure to check out some of our friends. Check out Main Event Marks. Head on over to Facebook.com/Main Event Marks. You can join Angry Cooter and his panel of smart Main Event Marks every Thursday at 9 p.m. for an uncensored show for the Marks, by the Marks.
That's right, and we are here to spread the wealth. If you love professional wrestling, we urge you to go over to pwpnation.com. PWP Nation is a wrestling media website and community that loves professional wrestling. They strive on creating an array of interesting articles and reviews on everything professional wrestling. Head on over to pwpnation.com.
Also, be sure to head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com. It launched in August of this year, and it strives to report on the stories you actually care about in the world of professional wrestling, not just clickbait filling most news sites. Founder and editor-in-chief Ryan Satin previously worked as a senior producer for TMZ.com, where he has helped the company become a force in wrestling reporting, largely in part to his exclusive stories he landed on a constant basis. Make sure you head on over to ProWrestlingSheet.com.
Well, that's the show. We want to thank you all for listening today.
Every week we do this show free of charge for you, the fans.
If you're wondering how to repay us, we have just the thing.
Subscribe to us on iTunes, and while you're there, be sure to rate us and give us a good review.
And if you're looking for more information about AWP, then head on over to anotherwrestlingpodcast.com.
We are all over social media, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and more.
And if you're an AWP superfan, you can go show your support by going over to ProWrestlingTees.com and buying one of our official AWP shirts.
We couldn't do this show without you, so tune in next week for
Another Wrestling Podcast.
Hi, everybody. This is Jim